Great Scott! It looks like I managed to somehow travel back to 1985. I don't know what happened, but I guess that's perfect because to celebrate the 35th anniversary of Back to the Future, I was actually going to rank all the movies in the trilogy, so this is kind of fitting because I'm back at the place where it all started. But I guess with all that being said, this is a good but weird way to segue into the ranking, so with all that being said, I guess let's get into it. And while the intro's rolling, I'm going to figure out some way to get out of this monitor thing, whatever this is. Haven't seen one of these in a long time. So, as I mentioned earlier, yesterday was the 35th anniversary of the original Back to the Future film, and it got me thinking, why not just go back and rank the franchise, because I've always just had a ton of fun with this. This is such a monumental franchise when you're thinking of fantasy genre, just the fun action kind of lighthearted comedies. Just there's so much to love about Back to the Future, and I feel like it was such a staple, especially when it comes to the 80s. Just all the films coming out, and so many things have really just played off the different aspects shown in the Back to the Future trilogy, and I just think that's some of the best sci-fi out there still today. It's really hard to beat it, and I went back and rewatched them recently, so I figured it was the perfect time, especially with the 35th anniversary, to just go and talk about it, rank it from my least favorite to my favorite. Now, make sure you go down to the comments and let me know your ranking of the franchise as well. I think there's a lot of people that can kind of agree with my list, but I know there's going to be some people in the mix that have sort of different opinions on each film, so I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. But with all that being said, let's hop into the ranking. So coming in at that third spot is, no surprise, the third film in the franchise. I feel like this is something that a lot of people can mutually agree was probably the weakest in the franchise. Now, let me preface beforehand, I actually enjoy every single one of these films. I think that even the ones that are kind of messy and have their problems, there's still a lot there to love, and there's still just a ton to enjoy and have fun with. And I think that this is the one that really, while it was a ton of fun, it really took the most risks. It was probably the most ambitious out of all the films because it completely switched it up, but it kind of retconned a lot of the other previous things set up in the other two films, and it kind of went against its own rules that it set up. And I feel like it was just something that, while there was a lot of things that I enjoyed about it, going back to the Western time, trying to save Doc from getting killed, and then Doc falling in love with his love interest. First film, you have Marty's mom and dad getting together, and now in this film, you have the relationship between Doc and the girl he meets. There's just so much to love about it, and I think it also plays off a bunch of Western tropes. Now, when I say tropes, it's really like the super cliche stuff that when you look back at spaghetti westerns, it's not necessarily exactly how they were. It's more of the Hollywood kind of over dramatized comedic version of Western films, and I think that while there's a lot to love there, I think there's a great bunch of aspects that it played into. It went against a lot of the things it set up, and I kind of had an issue with that. There was a lot of things that it's like, in the process of the film, they didn't even think about how it didn't make sense, and it didn't tie into the other films. And there's some things with time and the vehicle and ages of certain people, and the way that it messed with the past, even though they didn't go into the past. It's just, there's a lot of complicated stuff there that it really messed with, and I feel like when they were making the film, they didn't necessarily completely think about how all the pieces would line together in the puzzle, and so it made you kind of questioning some things and made you kind of confused at times. But that being said, there was still a lot to enjoy there. Like I said, I love the chemistry between Doc and his girl. I love Marty and Doc just being in that Western environment and him really playing into a bunch of comedic Western atmosphere vibes. But other than that, I think that there was quite a few things that they didn't necessarily think all the way through, and it really showed. Our runner-up is Back to the Future Part 2. Now, this is a film that, for the longest time, it was actually my favorite. It played into so many aspects, and I thought it was cool that they actually finally, they went into the future, and you saw how they imagined 2015 was going to be. I remember that was a big deal when 2015 came, and we're like, well, that is nothing like the movie at all. We got hoverboards, but it was kind of a catch to it, because even though they're called hoverboards, there's wheels on them, so it's not the same thing as we got in the film. There's not self-lacing shoes. There's a lot of things that they anticipated and they thought was going to happen, but none of it really came to be, at least yet. I think that there's a possibility maybe in the next 20 years that some of those things will happen, but as of right now, nada. So that was kind of a disappointment, but looking at it, I thought it was just fun. It was a really futuristic vibe, and I like the things they played into, the way that they imagined the future would be, and the different technology that they built for the future. Also, though, it takes a lot of risks when it goes to, you start off and you go to this futuristic vibe, you know, when Marty's trying to stop his son from the future from getting in trouble. But then you go to this dark, like, parallel universe where everything is flipped, and Biff is married to Marty's mom, and he's kind of this head mogul of the whole entire city. He owns every building, he owns every business. He's kind of just the spokesman for it, and I feel like there was a lot of things there that they took risks with. There was a lot of dark stuff that they played into that was really, really surprising, and a lot of things like abuse and alcoholism, and just some pretty dark stuff, especially for this type of film. And I think that the biggest problem with this film, while I did enjoy most of it, is the tone was all over the place. They couldn't really just pick the tone, the mood, the atmosphere that they wanted to go with, and it was kind of all over the place. Also, going back and rewatching this film recently, Ryan O'Toole said in a recent video, if you don't know who Ryan O'Toole is, make sure to go check out his channel because he has great content. He said in a recent video that he has an issue with this film because it plays off of a lot of stuff that's in It's a Wonderful Life. And you know, I never really thought about that. I never really looked into it, but many of the story arcs and the character directions in this film are very much played off of It's a Wonderful Life. And it kind of plays in the universe of what would happen if I didn't exist. How would everybody act? Who would be with who? Who would be head over everybody? And I just think that now going back with that perspective, there's a lot of stuff that this film copied. That being said, though, there was still a ton I enjoyed about this. Just like I said, the fun aspects when it comes to the futuristic world, all this stuff, the cool technology. Just I felt like even though there was those tonal problems, there was a lot of fun I had with this film. Like I said, this was my favorite for the longest time. But of course, my number one is going to be the original Back to the Future. I just think that this film really did everything right. It's almost near perfect in my opinion. It just introducing all the characters. You got Marty McFly, you've got Doc Brown, you've got George McFly, his father, who's really just this pushover, and Biff, who really just always is kind of walking over his dad. And I like that when they figured out time travel, this was such a big deal, but they used it. They used that ability to go back into the past to try to make his father not a pushover. But in the process, you know, you've got the things to where if you mess with time too much, it's going to affect the future, and Marty might not even exist, and everything relies on the past and how it plays out. And if you mess up one little detail, it can screw up the whole entire timeline. And I think that was great. And just going back, kind of making friends with his father, because at this point his father doesn't know who he is, helping him try to stand up to Biff, try to gain more confidence and get the girl of his dreams, so maybe he can have a better future instead of one to where he's always a pushover. I think that was just so perfect, and I just love the chemistry between Doc Brown and Marty McFly in this. I think it's great. There's also some hilarious moments, like the fact that when he goes back in time, for the longest time, his mother has a huge crush on him. she thinks she's Calvin Klein because of his underwear. There's just so many iconic moments in this film. Save the Clock Tower. This is the film that was so monumental and kind of started it all, and is such an icon when it comes to these 80s sci-fi films that people still look back at today as truly, truly iconic. So many great quotes, so many great memories. This is just all where it started, and I think that this is the most simplistic of it all, and it's okay because it doesn't have to be too like out there and too just over the top. It had a vision, and I think this was the most clear vision and the most clear story out of all three. I think I dug all the characters. I dug the direction, the score by Alan Silvestri, the same guy who did the score for the Avengers Endgame. He did all these films, and I think it's just wonderfully composed. I think the direction by Robert Zemeckis is great. This film just did everything right, and when I'm going back to watch these films now, this is going to be the one that I watch the most often because it's just the one that hit every single mark for me. So yeah, guys, there you have it. That is my ranking of the Back to the Future trilogy. So like I said in the beginning of the video, make sure to go down below in the comments and let me know your ranking of the franchise. I feel like I'm going to have quite a few people that agree with my ranking. I think we're going to have similar positions for the films, but you never know. There can be somebody who puts the third one at number 1 and the first one at number 3. You just never know. That's what I love film. It's so subjective, and everybody can have their own opinion, and it's okay. So make sure to leave your comments down below. Also, if you would, make sure to give a like on this video and subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to turn on the bell notification to get notified every time I post a new video. Guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for the continuous support, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.